This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
All right, let's have some fun. It's time for Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo right here on VSiN, taking you through your Sunday night, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight officially in the books as the weekend is concluding. We've got a Final Four, folks, and for just the second time since 1985, since the tournament expanding to 64, now obviously 68 teams, we have all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. So if you were one of those people who I can't stand, who had the chalky bracket as soon as the field was released, and you made your bracket and you had all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, and I'm being very upfront, I can't stand you people who do that. Pat yourselves on the backs, because you, for the second time since 1985 and the first time in almost 2 decades, were correct. And if you're the person who does it every year, well, I'll give you crap every other year when you're inevitably wrong, but this year, you were correct. And we can have the discussion and we can have the argument as to what NIL's impact on that is, and if that's the future of college basketball or if this is just a coincidence. I'm not getting involved in that right here, right now, because I need to see what happens next year, what happens in 2027. Look, if next year we get all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, I'll be receptive to that argument, because it's happened once prior to this year since 1985. If it happens again 2 years in a row, and it's only happened 3 times total since 85, I'll listen to that argument. But I'm not going to sit here and complain that there's no Cinderella, that there's no Loyola Chicago or VCU or UCLA when they went first 4 to Final Four. I'm not going to sit here and do that, because what we have right now is truly the 4 best teams in the nation. Now, am I upset that St. John's didn't get there? Absolutely. Am I upset that Michigan State didn't get there? Considering I had those 2 teams, Johnny's at 6-1, Sparty at 5-1 to get to the Final Four, respectively. Absolutely. I'm even more upset that Sparty never took a lead in the second half and let me hedge with a moderately priced Auburn bet. I think the shortest that I saw Auburn live in that game was minus 200. And at that point, I wasn't really interested in getting involved with a hedge at that price. I was really hoping to get an even or a plus money price on Auburn at some point, but Sparty, we'll dive into that momentarily, just could never get over the hump. Closest they made it, seemingly in the second half, was when the buzzer hit 000. But we'll get to that in a minute. We've got some great guests tonight. Going to dive more into Michigan State Auburn with our friend Nick Whalen in about 13 minutes here. The host, of course, of Prop Points right here on VSiN, senior analyst over at RotoWire. Hour 2, Colby Conway going to make his Cashing Out debut alongside myself, MLB analyst at Fantasy Alarm. Can't wait to have him on, talk some baseball. We are through opening weekend. And then Connor Mack from Pub Sports Radio going to join the show in hour 3. We'll look ahead to some early Final Four lines as Duke has opened up a 4.5-point favorite over Houston. We've got Florida laying 2.5 against Auburn. And I'll tell you off the bat, no bets have been placed. No extensive research or analysis has been done. But, I mean, come on, we're at the point in March Madness where, you know, we spend all college hoop season, oh, this team at home is X and X against the spread, and this team on a neutral, or this team coming off of a loss. You watch the games, there's your handicap at this point, right? There's no more Duke on a neutral. I don't care what Duke did in the ACC tournament against the spread. I don't care what, you know, Houston did in non-conference. Don't forget, Houston on a neutral non-conference lost to San Diego State. It's a very different Houston team than the team that started 4-3. As our own Paulie Howard tweeted out not too long ago, since December 1st, your Houston Cougars, folks, 30-1. Straight up. That one loss, February 1st, to Texas Tech. By the way, not too shabby of a loss. A 1-point loss to an Elite Eight team. Yeah, this Houston team is special. And that's why my first inclination, my first thought, is take the 4.5 with Kelvin Sampson's Cougars and lay the 2.5 with the Florida Gators. Now, you might say, after Auburn's performance against Michigan State, why would you be so quick to lay the 2.5 with Florida? The answer is Auburn's performance against Michigan State. Auburn was not convincingly dominant against Sparty today. And that was about as poor an offensive performance as Tom Izzo's Spartans could have turned in their wildest dreams. Florida, the Gators, watching that game, had to be licking their chops no matter who came out on the right side. Because whether it was Sparty, whether it was Auburn, if either of those teams play the way they did in the Elite Eight against Florida, they're going to get boat raced out of San Antonio by double digits. And there is no disputing that. Auburn was not that impressive, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you look at this team, they got out rebounded by Michigan State, which shocked me considering Janai Broome went for 25 and 14. But if you had told me, and I said this, I turned to the guy next to me at the establishment I was at earlier watching the game, and I told him, I said, geez, if you told me coming into this thing that Auburn was 7 of 25 from 3, and that Broome was the only starter in double digits, I'd have said Michigan State money line was the play. I took them plus 5.5. By the way, I'm kicking myself because at halftime, I turned to the same guy. Sparty live plus 6.5 was plus 120. And I had plus 5.5 in pocket. And I turned to him and I go, plus 6.5? That sounds like a good play to me. And I go to fire it. Odds change. Bet doesn't get accepted. Refreshes. It's plus 115. I said, you know what? Maybe that's a sign the bet didn't get accepted. Odds moved. Maybe it's a sign to stay away. They're plus 6.5. The plus money is intriguing to me, but I already have plus 5.5 in pocket. I mean, what are the odds it falls on 6, right? It's either die with both or live with both. Well, it fell on 6. So I'm an ass for that one. But Michigan State, I don't know how they got it within 6. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. From the floor, from 3, doesn't matter. I mean, from 3, they were 30.5%. From the floor, 34.5%. I mean, the staggering number to me is the amount of 2s that they missed. You look at this team, and they were 7 of 23 from 3. And frankly, that's better than they actually were on the day because they hit a few late ones. I think they were 4 of their last 6, but they started 3 of 17 from beyond the arc. So I'm not worried about the 4 of 6 when you're down 10 and the game's out of reach with 2 minutes to go. They weren't pulling a Florida-like comeback in this one. So they're 3 of their first 17 from 3, finished 7 of 23. That's fine. From 2, they were 15 of 41. How the hell do you, a Tom Izzo team, go 15 of 41 from 2? What sunk Michigan State in this one was the same exact thing that sunk a very similar profile team earlier in the tournament. Same thing that sunk St. John's against Arkansas. I don't care about the 2 for 20, whatever St. John's was from 3. It was the enormous amount of missed layups that were uncharacteristic of the Spartans team all year long and of St. John's all year long. But at the end of the day, it was misses at the rim from point blank that sunk both of their seasons. Same exact thing. Look, you look at both of them, St. John's against Arkansas, Michigan State against Auburn. Both had terrible days from beyond the arc. But it was the missed layups that ended both of their seasons. I was floored. My jaw dropped at the number of point-blank layups Sparty missed. Jordan Akins had no body control at the rim. And I don't want to hear Akins finished with 15 and he hit those 3 threes late. This is a guy who had 4 points in like the first 35 minutes of the game. Jordan Akins, he's their second leading scorer if all you're doing is reading the box score. He had a terrible game. And you know, I don't want to rag on a college kid. It was the whole team. It wasn't just him. But he's chucking up threes. And he was, 0 for his first 7 or 0 for his first 6. And then he hit 3 of his last 4 at the very end there. But he's chucking up threes and he's uncontested. And I'm looking at him and I'm staring like, what the hell is going on? He looks like he's fading away on uncontested threes. He's missing free throws. He's going for these underhand scoop layup. If I see another college kid shoot an underhand layup, I'm going to drive to the campus and take a scholarship away from him. I mean, these underhand layups, Michigan State had no body control. They weren't attacking the rim with ferocity. They were like getting to the rim, getting the look they wanted, and fading away, falling back. It was like they were pansying when they got there. They got the look they wanted, and then they got scared. It was such a disheartening performance from a team that has been as tough, if not tougher, than any other in college hoops all year long. So strong at the rim. I mean, get the looks they want from two, convert on them from two, because we all know this wasn't a three-point shooting team. But the way that they defended, Auburn did not shoot the ball well. This was prime for a Sparty win. If you told me that with 10 minutes to go in the game, there were 90 combined points, mind you, it was 50-40 Auburn. But if you just said, hey, there's 10 minutes left in the game, there are 90 combined points, I'm like, oh, Sparty got the pace they want. Sparty's in control. They were far from in control in this one. But Auburn, not exactly what I would call impressive. That's why my early inclination, immediate reaction, is lay the 2.5 with Todd Golden's Gators. By the way, great narrative in that one. Golden used to work for Pearl. More on that to come. But VSiN fans, it is time to plan your Las Vegas getaway. Circa Las Vegas owner Derek Stevens offering you 15% off at 3 of his incredible properties. Circa Las Vegas, the D Hotel, and the Golden Gate. Whether you're lounging by Stadium Swim, taking in the games on Circa's stunning rooftop pool, or enjoying the excitement Vegas has to offer, you'll save big with the promo code VSiN15. Book your stay now, circalasvegas.com. Use that code VSiN15. You'll get 15% off. Your Vegas adventure starts here. Up next, co-host of Prop Points, senior analyst at RotoWire, Nick Whalen joins us. We'll break down the Elite Eight, look ahead to the Final Four. Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Cashing Out continues with me, Joe Ceraulo, taking you through your Sunday night into Monday morning. The Elite Eight in the books. We're looking ahead to the Final Four. And who better to welcome into the show, look ahead with, recap the weekend we just had, get a little NBA talk, and hell, if we're feeling frisky, maybe some NFL futures too, than our friend Nick Whalen, the co-host of Prop Points right here on VSiN, senior analyst over at RotoWire, joining us now on the Progressive Guest Line. Nick, how are you, man? How was your weekend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Full weekend. Had my father's 60th birthday party up in the Green Bay area yesterday. So I was, doing that, kind of, schmoozing with some family, trying to, of course, keep an eye on both games last night. Got a little golf in on Friday. And, now we're on to one of my favorite spots of the week. So looking forward to talking some hoops with you, man.
There you go. You hit the links. Hey, how about what happened with Minwoo Lee earlier today? Whew. I mean, I don't bet golf. I'm not really, plugged in, but our guy Wes Reynolds gave out another winner. That was apparently a hell of a long shot, huh?
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. He's been hot. I think a lot of people were on Minwoo Lee this week. I mean, it was kind of a top-heavy field. I don't do a lot of golf betting myself, but just, as I just watch a lot of golf, thinking that, like, by osmosis, it's going to make me a better golfer. That has not been the case whatsoever. There's not a proven link there at all. But it was, the odds this week were basically, Scotty was like, plus 350, 4-1. Rory's hanging around 6-7-1. And then there was a drop off. Like, I think the third highest or third shortest in the odds was like 19 or 20-1, depending on where you look. So it was a bit of a top heavy field. And I think certainly found some success if you veered away from Scotty and especially Rory.
Well, there is a proven link that if you watch Michigan State basketball this year, you'll become a worse three-point shooter. Nick, what was your take watching that Sparty-Auburn game? I had Michigan State 5-1 to the Final Four. I had them plus 5.5. I just told the story how at halftime I got a plus money price on them plus 6.5, and I said, I've already got 5.5. What are the odds it lands exactly on 6? And, well, we all know how that ended. What was your big takeaway from the game?
Well, it feels like we've had so many of these games, already just in this tournament where one team just cannot get it together for a full 40 minutes offensively, right? It's like good teams. Some of the 10 best teams in the country have had these games where, it's not like you're shooting, 42, 43% from the field, which is not ideal, but you can win games doing that. Auburn did it today. They shot 42.5% and won this game, somewhat handily at the end. But Michigan State, 34% from the field, 34% from the field. We know about their struggles from beyond the arc. That's nothing new, but I think they really struggled with the size of Auburn. Yeah, when Janai Broome went out, Joe, it was kind of about 25% of the way through the second half. there was an opportunity there. I think at one point, Auburn missed 9 out of 10 shots, and the door was open for Michigan State to at least, claw into that lead. It just felt like they couldn't get it under 6, couldn't get it under 7. Every time they had an opportunity, they were missing shots. Trey Holloman goes 0 of 10 from the field, 0 of 5 from beyond the arc, 2 turnovers, gave you absolutely nothing off the bench. I thought Auburn obviously played better, but they didn't play that well. It just felt like that lead was consistently in that 7 to 10 range the entire second half. And again, like I said, when Jedi Broome went out, that was the opportunity for Michigan State. Really the only guy I felt like who consistently showed up, the only guy who really kept Michigan State in this game was Jackson Kohler, just hitting jump hook after jump hook.
Yeah. Nick, I don't know if you were watching the program before you jumped on, but you pretty much echoed my sentiment wholeheartedly, man. It's like this Auburn team is a team that shoots nearly 49% on the season as a whole. If you told me going in, Michigan State held them to 42%, I tell you Michigan State won the game.
Right.
There were a lot of, when you look at the stats there and you look at the numbers, there were a lot of, if you tell me Auburn only did that, I tell you Sparty wins, at least covers. But yeah, Michigan State, for as bad I thought of an offensive performance as Auburn turned in, Sparty was just 20 times worse. You like you said, you kept waiting for them to get going like they do every other game. We've seen them fall behind 10 points early, New Mexico. Ole Miss, we've seen the 6 to 10 point deficits. They always overcome them. They got it to 5 late in the first half. It got back out to 9. Got it to 7 in the second half. Next thing you know, it's 11. They just couldn't get over the hump, and it was really discouraging. I thought this team could have gotten the job done. They locked down everyone seemingly except Jedi Broome. But the thing was, every time Auburn went on a scoring drought, Sparty had a scoring drought of their own. How about the early game? Houston. What you saw out of them against Tennessee, what can they do against Duke?
Well, I guess we could start with the Tennessee matchup and talk Duke a little bit later. I mean, that is going to be a fantastic contrast in styles. You talk about a team that wants to slow things down. They want to play games in the 50s and 60s. They're totally okay with that. Duke, obviously the most efficient offensive team in the country. I mean, Tennessee had 15 points in the first half, Joe. 15 points. That is the lowest ever for a 1 or a 2 seed in any NCAA tournament game in history. It's the lowest ever, regardless of seed, in an Elite 8 game. And all credit to Houston. We knew this game was going to be ugly. If you were on the under, congratulations. That hit pretty comfortably. But Tennessee was getting good looks, I thought, for the most part. They missed their first 14 shots from beyond the arc. I mean, part of it, of course, is the defense that Houston plays. But I thought it was just another one of those games that we just talked about where it's like the opportunities were there and you just have what feels like a worst case shooting game at the worst possible time. And, Tennessee trailed by 19 at the half. They never even got it down to single digits at any point in the second half. I think they briefly cut it to 10 with about 5.5 left. And then Houston, of course, hits 3 straight threes, 2 of those by Emmanuel Sharp. And this is another game where, somebody who's played well throughout this tournament just didn't show up. Jazz Lanier has been so good for Tennessee. 4 of 18 from the field, 2 of 12 from 3. Zakai Ziegler goes 1 of 9 from the field. Like you're not winning an Elite 8 game, especially against a team like Houston with those two guys putting up those kind of numbers. So again, I don't think Houston played all that well. I think they wouldn't say lucky to escape because they did dominate this game defensively. But again, Tennessee just missed so many good looks in that first half. And you're not coming back from a 19-point deficit the way Houston can run clock.
What's crazy to me, Nick, is you look at the 4 teams that played today, and they all shot poorly. Houston was the best, 9 of 25 from 3, 36%. That was the best from beyond the arc. And from the floor, them and Auburn both in the 42% range. But no one shot 43% or better from the floor in either of the games. That's nuts to me.
That's college hoops, man. I watch a lot of NBA, and that was something I was kind of reminded of early in the tournament is these wide open wing threes, corner threes that you're just used to, NBA players converting those at what feels like a 60-70% clip. It's like there's just nothing guaranteed when it comes to shooting at the college level, even for these elite teams. I mean, we're down to what I think objectively, 8 of the maybe 10 best teams in the country by any consensus. And these are the teams that are doing this, right? We're not talking about, Morehead State coming out and shooting 21% from 3. It's like these are supposed to be the most efficient teams in the country. And it's just been really ugly. I saw a good stat, by the way, from David Cobb, who does good work over at CBS. Houston has now held 23 opponents under 50 points over the last 2 seasons, which is more than any 2 other teams combined. It's crazy.
That's insane. That is absolutely nuts. You look at this Duke team. They didn't have any shooting woes against Bama. I mean, they were 54% from the floor. By the way, Bama, 35% from the floor, 25% from 3. Much different Bama team than we saw against the Cougs Thursday night. But Duke, 6 of 13 from beyond the arc. Not a ton of volume, but really efficient. 54% from the floor. I mean, this is a Duke team. It seems like they're going to score 90 every time they go out there. 85 against Bama,
Yeah.
slight exception. What can Houston hold them to? What direction do you see this game going? Two, like you said, vastly different opponents.
Yeah, well, I think you bring up something interesting, which is that Duke only needed 13 3-point attempts, right? The way this game played out, I think if you had gone in and told Duke, hey, you're only going to take 13 threes, I think you feel pretty good about the outcome, because that doesn't mean that you're trying to keep up with this Bama team. And this one obviously was never all that close for most of the second half. And we talked about this as being a potential Bama regression spot almost by default, right? They weren't going to shoot it at the level they did against BYU. I didn't think they'd regress that hard. I mean, 35% from the field, 6 of 32 from three as a team. Mark Sears, had an all-time come back down to earth spot. But the thing that really sticks out to me about Duke, and it certainly bothered Alabama, I think it'll bother Houston as well, is the size that Duke can present, right? I mean, they don't have a single starter under 6'6". I thought they really got after the Bama guards. They were able to hold down Mark Sears. They were able to challenge everything at the rim. Kaman Malawach was in no foul trouble whatsoever throughout this game. They gave Alabama nothing in transition, which is obviously very uncharacteristic for that Bama team. So much different opponent. When you're looking at Houston, my initial lean here is on Duke. I would look at the over 136.5. I mean, 17 of the last 20 Duke games have gone over that number. Obviously, you could probably find a pretty similar trend on the Houston side to the opposite, but we'll see if Houston's able to drag them into the mud. I think they were able to do that against a lot of Big 12 opponents, but the efficiency with which Duke is operating right now, so many different options in that offense. It doesn't even feel like they need Cooper Flagg to give them 25, 6, and 6 every night. So I lean Duke here, and I'm looking at that over 136.5.
Yeah, that's what scares me, is exactly what you just hit on there. The size of Duke. Having Flagg at 6'9" run that point forward. I mean, what are you going to have, Cryer on him at 6'1"? Right. And I love what Cryer brings offensively, but yeah, the size of Duke might be too much. I did say my initial lean was take the points if Houston can control the tempo and, really dominate the pace and play their style of ball. But I don't know, 4.5's enough to take. I might need more than that. We'll see the direction it goes. By the way, Nick, 15 seconds or less. What did you think of Cooper Flagg's performance? I'm hearing people say he was disappointing. Not the best night shooting, but I thought he really had a versatile game.
I thought he was totally fine. Fine. Duke didn't need him to have that kind of game. He had it in the Elite Eight, where it felt like he was doing everything. He was being a distributor. He was playing defense. Now, I've been completely impressed by him. And again, it's not a one-man team for Duke. They don't need Cooper Flagg to be that kind of guy.
Right. This is an incredibly deep team from college to the NBA. Going to break down the Monday slate on the other side with our buddy Nick Whalen, senior analyst over at RotoWire, right here on Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Cashing Out continues with myself, Joe Ceraulo, our friend, the host of Prop Points right here on VSiN, Nick Whalen, senior analyst at RotoWire, joining us now on the progressive guest line to look ahead to Monday's NBA slate. And Nick, the first game that jumps out on me here is Boston laying about 4.5 to 5, depending on where you shop, at Memphis. The way the Grizzlies look right now, I mean, I can't imagine not laying the points with the Celtics. This Grizzlies team looks completely dead. They look like they're going to go from, at one point, the 2 seed to potentially the play-in tournament. What do you think about this Memphis team, where they stand now, and what was your reaction to the subtle firing of Taylor Jenkins over the weekend while they're in a playoff race?
It's unprecedented. It's completely unprecedented for a coach of a team in this position to be fired at this point in the season. I mean, for one, you don't really see any coaches being let go with 7 games left in the regular season. Like, you play out the string at this point. Yeah, even if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, the Utah Jazz, you're not letting a coach go at this point. You're not. It's not one of those things where you want to get in on the hiring cycle early. That doesn't really happen in the NBA. It's bizarre, man. It's bizarre. And I thought by now we would have some sort of expose coming from Chris Haynes or Shams Charania, right? With all the dirt on what's going on behind the scenes. And we just haven't seen it. So I'm really not sure. I mean, I don't think, I think if you polled, the media or, just kind of people who follow the NBA, I think they would have told you that Taylor Jenkins is on the list of the 5 to 10 best coaches in the NBA. And I think some would even have him higher. I mean, he was 4th in Coach of the Year odds at the time of the firing earlier this week. So I was as puzzled as everybody else. I haven't really seen a reason for it. The only thing that's been thrown out there is maybe he was butting heads with John Morant, with regard to the Grizzlies offense. But I mean, John Morant has missed half the season. He's missed over half their games over the last 3 years. So to me, nothing that's really gone on with this Grizzlies team. Yeah, they're under 500 since the All-Star break, but I don't know how much of that you could really tether to Ja Morant, who's just not been available enough to really make a difference. But anyway, looking at this game between Boston and Memphis on Monday night, like you said, line's been bouncing around. It was at 4, saw it at 5, now settled at 4.5 at the DraftKings Sportsbook. It feels a little low, to be honest. I'm with you. This seems like a fade spot for Memphis. I know they're at home, but Boston, as of right now, has a fairly clean injury report. Jaylen Brown is questionable, but that's about it. Obviously could be a rest spot potentially for Boston as we get toward the end of the season here. Memphis has a lot more to play for. I don't know if there's a post-firing bump being factored in, but obviously that didn't come through against the Lakers the other night. But I would look at the total here more than anything, Joe, 236. And, Boston's not a team that plays very quickly, but as we know, they shoot a ton of threes. And when they have their guys out there, they can pile up points in a hurry. Memphis has been awful for the most part defensively over the last month or so. They do play at a very fast pace, and just saw that game against the Lakers the other night go well over this number, and the Lakers are not a team that tends to play high-scoring games. So I look at the 236 right now. To me, that's a little bit low.
Yeah, you mentioned the Lakers. They're playing host to Houston. The Rockets just bludgeoned Phoenix. Nice 40-point win, handing Phoenix their 40th loss of the year. I've got the Suns under 40.5 wins, 2 more losses. We cash out. Already hit the Raptors over 27.5 on Sunday. So, we're on our way. Had 2 win totals placed at the All-Star break. We're on our way to 2-0, it looks like there. Rockets, though, second leg of a back-to-back. What are you looking for in this game? Lakers minus 5.5 on the early number.
First of all, great call by you on Toronto, because I don't think anybody was really on that Raptors team coming out of the break. But they have accidentally won so many games that I think they didn't want to win over the last couple of weeks. They're pulling starters. They're resting RJ Barrett every other night, and they're still winning. They won again earlier on Sunday. But looking at Houston and LA, I mean, it's a tough game to handicap. There's some trends that would push you in favor of the Lakers, but really in watching these teams over the last couple of weeks, it certainly feels like Houston is playing significantly better. A lot of the basic, net rating type of numbers would certainly back that up. Lakers defense has really fallen off a cliff. Really since the LeBron injury, they haven't quite recovered that. Houston, meanwhile, number 1 in the NBA in defense over the last 10 games. So my first instinct here would be to just grab some points with Houston. You can get that at 5 right now at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, it is the second leg of a back-to-back. I get that you're traveling out to LA, but they also, beat the Phoenix Suns by 39 on Sunday night. That was not a game where you're extending your starters. Nobody's playing 40 minutes in a game like that. So I don't really see that as a huge disadvantage for Houston. This is another spot, Joe, where I would consider the under 226. We'll see if Houston holds anybody out on the second night of a back-to-back. My guess would be no, given where they are and how tight the West is right now. But the Rockets also are a top 5 team in the NBA right now in terms of limiting opponent points, assists, and rebounds. They're top 5 in all 3 of those categories. So I would tread a little bit lightly here. If you're looking at the Lakers prop market, can always be appealing to go to LeBron or go to Luka Doncic. And the last thing I'll say on this game is this should be a spot where Houston can get out in transition. They're not a team that tends to do that. They don't like to run. They don't play super fast, but the Lakers have been horrendous in terms of fast break points allowed, dead last in the NBA over the last 10 games. So that's something I would look at as well.
Yeah, to your point, great point about Houston winning by 40 and not having anyone play major minutes. Their leader, Van Fleet, 28 minutes. No one cracked 30 minutes for Houston. So in the middle of that playoff race, I could see them being a full go against the Lakers here. How about the other LA team? Lowest total by far on the board, 211.5. I'm seeing Clippers at the Magic. Anything stand out to you in this one?
Yeah, not too much as of now. We'll probably dabble in the prop market, as that game gets closer. I would lean Clippers here. It's not necessarily a great schedule spot for LA. They are on the second night of a road back-to-back, but did play early in the day. I think that was like a 3 p.m. Eastern tip on Sunday in Cleveland. So you got a little more time at least to travel. And Orlando's been so difficult to project night to night. It's still not a team that I love betting. I don't bet a lot of props involving Magic games because they do tend to be so low scoring. But the Clippers played the Cavaliers, essentially a full strength Cavaliers team today. Really tough. Almost won that game without Kawhi Leonard. He will presumably be back out there tomorrow. I think we should get a pretty good number, by the way, on Kawhi's points prop whenever that comes in. My guess would be, if you can get 23, 24.5, it'll probably be a little bit lower going up against Orlando. But we are seeing peak Kawhi Leonard over these last couple of weeks. He's playing, 38, 39, 40 minutes. You just did that the other night. So he's fully extended. He is kind of right where you want him to be. And I think this is a Kawhi spot. And for me, this is a Clippers spot going on the road.
Nick, the Thunder laying 14.5 to Chicago. OKC has got the 1 seed locked up. Chicago can score. We know that.
Yeah.
14.5 too many?
Yeah, it might be. It might be. We have some injury situations here to monitor. That number feels a little high because the Bulls have been playing well. Their metrics are all over the place. They're scoring a ton of points. They're still not like a team that I trust defensively, and yet their defensive rating looks pretty good. Bulls could be without Josh Giddey. That is a big one. Obviously, this would be a revenge spot for him going back to OKC, but he is questionable. I think with where this line sits, it implies to me that he probably isn't out there. Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren, Jalen with an I, Williams, all questionable on the OKC side. So we do have some moving pieces here. OKC obviously has been excellent at home. They've cleaned up in these spots for the most part. But like you said, Chicago number 1 in the NBA in pace right now. They've kind of figured out that is their way to hang in games. But OKC, in theory, on paper at least, Joe, has the defenders to throw at Kobe White. And if it has to be the Kobe White show against OKC, I don't think that is a winning proposition. If Giddey's not out there, Kevin Huerter's already been ruled out. I think that's putting a little too much on Kobe White. So I get why that number's at 14.5, I suppose.
Yeah, Kobe White with the rotating duo of SGA or Lou Dort on him might struggle a little bit to go for a 40 piece like he's done a couple times recently. Nick, I was told that you have some early NFL win totals that have caught your eye. They've been released at some shops. What stood out to you the most in that market?
Yeah, I'll try to run through a few here and not be too long-winded as I am one to do. But yeah, these are up at the DraftKings Sportsbook. I know they were up at some other books late last week. I absolutely love the NFL win totals market. It's just, unlimited discussion this time of year. The first one that jumped out to me, Joe, Seattle, 8.5. I like the under here. They do play the AFC South. They do play the NFC South. So I think that is a part of this number. But there's just so much uncertainty with Sam Darnold. You have another new offensive coordinator coming in. This will be 3 OCs in 3 years for the Seattle Seahawks. You shed, a big-time talent at wide receiver. You let go of Tyler Lockett as well, who still was playing well, into his mid-30s last season. I like Cooper Kupp. How many games does Cooper Kupp play? There's no depth beyond he and Jackson Smith and Jigba in that receiving core. And this is a team that I thought if you caught them on the wrong day, they looked like they had the worst offensive line in football at times last year. Yep. That still needs to be addressed. You can't address all these things in the draft. So I'm looking at the under right now, and that 8.5 for Seattle. I would do the same for Arizona as well. One of these teams is for sure going under. Maybe you have to pick one or the other, but the number's at 8.5 for the Cardinals. Like Seattle, they play the AFC and the NFC South. Again, there are some winnable games in there, but to me, Arizona has so many areas they need to improve. I don't know really what the path is to accomplishing all of that. It's a team that, to me, I feel like they got worse year over year. Marvin Harrison was not quite the player that they thought he would be. Got a lot of aging pieces on that roster. The defense kind of needs a full overhaul. So to me, that was one that I thought would come in at 7.5. I was surprised it was 8.5.
Nick, the NFC West, beyond intriguing to me. I remember when the division odds first came out, Rams were plus 230. I thought it was something to jump on. And then a few days later, plus 160. Obviously, the market caught up. Really appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for hopping on.
Hey, you bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Make sure you check out Prop Points. Nick's show, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on VSiN. Of course, does great work as the senior analyst over at RotoWire. Folks, don't forget, if you want Nick's picks, my picks, other guests on both of our shows, you've got to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. For just $9.99 your first 30 days, you can get all those best bets, plus more like exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa, 24/7 video access on the VSiN Watch app, and our March Mania betting guide. Tournament's almost over, but not quite. That betting guide's your game plan for a profitable Final Four. VSiN.com/subscribe, just $9.99. Let VSiN help you make some money.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Cashing Out continues, a new hour of it with me, Joe Ceraulo, taking you through your Sunday evening into your Monday morning here. So much to get to. The Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in the books. We've got our Final Four, all one seeds. First time since 2008, second time since the expansion of March Madness from 32 to 64 teams in 1985. Now, of course, 68 teams, but same deal with the round of 64 still being considered the opening of the tournament. So for the second time in 40 years, we've got all 4 1 seeds. We'll dive more into that as the show progresses. How about the opening weekend we just had in Major League Baseball? I got to say, It was an exciting opening weekend. It's the way opening day, opening weekend should all be done. Stateside, no more international openers 10 days before the rest of the teams start, please. I've been very impressed with some of these pitching props. And, the pitching prop market is where I like to think I specialize. It's where I like to sit, make most of my money, whether it's K props, outs recorded. Sometimes, and I noticed this pretty much last year for the first time. The K prop market has now been around a few years for quite some time, at least a few years in the mainstream side of things. So you get people catching up to it. And where I think you can make a little more money, be a little sharper, is outs recorded, earned runs. Nonetheless, when it comes to all that stuff, it's early. I won't touch an outs recorded bet until probably late April, maybe May 1st, right? But you look at some of these pitchers with their K prop, and if you had told me, Joe, going into Sunday, there are 26 starters going, right? 26 teams in action. How many do you think go over on their K prop? I'd have probably said between 9 and 11. That would have been my range. 13 out of the 26 went over. And I'll tell you what, a couple just missed on the hook, and it's because it's the same reason you got to be wary of these, because it's their first start of the year, and they had short leashes. You had Jacob deGrom, who, by the way, we'll dive into that here in just a second. Jacob deGrom back, how good him being healthy is for the game. He had a pitch count in the 70s, 5 innings, 6 strikeouts. His number was 6.5. Brian Wu from Seattle, this never-ending staff of aces that the Mariners have. Wu, his number was 5.5. He goes 6 very economical innings, pitch count in the 70s, and gets pulled after 6, stays under, finishes with 5 strikeouts. But, both of those guys, if you're in midseason form in June, I would venture to say are clearing their number. They're at the least getting one more inning of work, barring an implosion. But deGrom, 5 innings, Wu, 6 innings, pitch counts in the 70s, missed it by the hook. So you really had a realistic chance that 15 out of 26 could have easily gone over. But that's what you're dealing with. That's what you're up against earlier in the season. Now, all the more reason to follow the show on Twitter, at the Joe Ceraulo. We did have an angle in the Mariners Athletics game that we gave out. And if you follow that Google sheet that I post frequently that tracks all my bets for the entire year, we posted it up there. It was the under 4 runs, first 5, Athletics Mariners. It was 1-0 after 5 innings. So cashed that under with ease. Lost the Michigan State plus 5.5 on the hook. 1-1 Sunday. But the handicap there was Wu, Sears, 2 pitchers going up against opponent lineups that had sub-200 batting averages against them. And this Seattle team, it doesn't stop at Wu. While JP Sears, we could dive into that in the Athletics, how their pitching is kind of frisky, a little quiet, a little underrated. He's the number 4 guy in their staff, and Sears is one of those guys who's a little unpredictable because sometimes he gets lit up and he walks the farm. Other times he goes 6-7 innings where he looks damn near unhittable. That was the case in this one. Just made a mistake to Julio Rodriguez that cost him in the 2-1 loss. But Brian Wu is sensational. Now, I don't know if this pitch count thing is because it was his first go-around. He doesn't really go that deep into games ever. And he's a guy who maybe a handful of times in his career has eclipsed 100 pitches. He is an 85, 90 tops pitch guy typically. But Wu in the back end of this Mariners rotation, sensational. You have him, you have Bryce Miller, and then obviously the trio of Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby. This Mariners rotation, when healthy, pound for pound, best in baseball. I'd put them right head-to-head with the Dodgers rotation, 1 through 5, when healthy. The problem is, and they escaped today, but the problem is their lineup. 2-1. You can't try to win games 2-1. That is not a winning recipe. And at some point, if you want an opening weekend overreaction, I know that the Mariners are 2-2, and I believe that the Toronto Blue Jays are also 2-2. If you want my opening weekend overreaction to a couple of 500 teams, Blue Jays should start their fire sale now. Mariners should start buying now. That's my opening weekend overreaction. The Blue Jays, I firmly believe, are going to be sellers, and the Mariners need to be buyers because they can pitch their way into the playoffs, but my goodness, this team can't hit. And I don't think what we're seeing is, it's opening weekend. It's a slow start. No, the Mariners cannot hit. We knew coming into the season that they would not hit. And I don't care if it's 4 games. I don't think this is an overreaction because we had a whole 162 last year to determine this. They can't hit. And their pitching is sensational. If I'm Seattle, start bleeping buying now. They should have started buying in the offseason. I don't get it. I said it a few days ago. They inked Cal Raleigh to that 6-year, 9-figure extension, which is great. I love Cal Raleigh. He's a 220 hitter who can hit 25 home runs. I mean, you're extending him, and I love extending the hometown kid. He's great, the big dumper, all that stuff's fun. But you had the money for him. Where was the money in the free agent market, Seattle? Come on. I mean, this team needed to improve its lineup. And I mentioned those 2 teams. That's not a coincidence, Toronto and Seattle. I would love nothing more than to see Vlad on the Mariners. Vladdy Jr. going to Seattle would, I believe, make the Mariners a first-place team in that AL West. Sticking in the AL West, mentioned Jacob deGrom. He makes his return, comes up 1 strikeout short of going over on his K-prop, but 5 strong innings. Look, Jacob deGrom, and maybe in July, weather heats up, I'm wrong, and he hits 101. Jacob deGrom, I'm going to say, may never throw 100 miles per hour again. Maybe not until or unless he's in the postseason. But there's just no need for it, right? What I was impressed by the most in his start this afternoon against the Red Sox was the usage of his curveball. That's always been a distant 4th pitch for deGrom, right? Fastball, slider, changeup, curveball were a tier below. But it was the guy could throw 102 with the fastball. And, I mean, he's thrown 95, 96 mile per hour sliders in his career. Maybe, possibly the reason he's been injured so much. But nonetheless, he's done it. Slider was sitting 90. Changeup, 88, 89. Curveball coming in at 82. Using the curveball more. I just thought deGrom looked relaxed. And, I mean, the guy has always looked effortless. He's always made throwing 100 look effortless. But he was sitting 97. And everything, the slider especially, everything was down a couple of ticks. But he looked like he was relaxed. He looked like he was in control. And he looked great, right? 5 innings, none earned, 2 walks, 2 hits, 6 strikeouts against what I think could be a great Red Sox lineup. And I say could be because Rafael Devers hasn't done squat yet. Hitless, first 4 games of the year, 12 strikeouts. My goodness, what are we doing, Devers? I mean, look, I'm not going to overreact to the Red Sox starting 1-3, but I've got a lot of damn money on this Red Sox team, so it would be nice if they could hit the ball. Yankees are putting up 20 spots opening weekend, and this Red Sox team that I have heavily invested in, their supposed best hitter has 12 strikeouts before he's got a hit in 4 games. Would be nice if they could wake up. That kid, Richard Fitz, looked great on the bump. Made 2 mistakes in the 6th inning. Was through 5 one-run ball prior to that. Made 2 mistakes. Fine. I mean, he's a kid. Last year was sensational. 4 starts to end the season. 3 of them didn't allow an earned run. I mean, they've got depth out there, you-know-what, in their pitching staff. And I love their pitching staff. This lineup should be hitting. And they're not hitting enough. And now 3 straight losses after the extra innings opening day win. The Red Sox need to wake up. Folks, time to face a hard truth. You're probably not great at betting every sport, but good news is March Madness isn't over, and our friends at Rhythm can help. The best bettors use data to get ahead, so let AI work for you this March. Rhythm is an app that helps you build personalized betting models, analyze trends, and make sharper picks for every game. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or you're looking for an edge on the 4 remaining tournament teams down in San Antonio, Rhythm's got you covered with AI-backed projections and insight. Start your free 7-day trial today by downloading the app or visiting rhythm.com. That's RITHMM.com. Let AI help you cash out some tickets in the Final Four. Speaking of the Final Four, going to preview it on the other side. Look at this Houston Cougars team that absolutely shut down Rick Barnes' Vols. Can they do it again against Duke? We'll take a look. Cashing Out with Joe Ceraulo.